Hello, I'm Joanna with Blissful Baby Sleep Coaching, and we're here with another success story. Their son, they first came to me when their son was 15 months old. We totally successfully sleep trained him and nap trained him, and it was awesome, right?
Yeah.
And then little guy got really sick with hand, foot, and mouth. They were also in a big transition with possibly moving. And so all those sneaky sleep crutches that we had completely eliminated, boom, they were back. So
Yeah.
we actually then had to do a second session, if you will, of sleep training again when he was 2 months old, 24 months old.
22 months old.
22 months old.
Yes.
So as we're going through the sleep success story, I just wanted everyone to kind of understand that they've got two really unique perspectives on doing sleep coaching with a 15-month-old and doing a sleep coaching with a 22-month-old, which are two entirely different creatures. So, um, my first question always is, what was life like before you called me?
Yeah. So we actually tried approaching you at 7, 8 months when our baby was that old. And there was a lot of misinformation with cry it out method. And that was something that really scared us. And then we ultimately decided to not go through with it. And life at the time seemed okay. Like we were involuntarily bringing on a lot of crutches just to make him sleep and keep him asleep, which we didn't know at the time that we were doing. Like we were rocking, we were singing, we are doing like a bunch of things which seemed harmless, which is harmless. And we had the bottle, we had the pacifier, we had like a bunch of things that were going on to try and get him to stay asleep. And we continued to do that for a year until he was a year. And then we had a big trip where we co slept for like a month and a half or something. And after that, he just would not go back to his crib.
Yeah.
And it was almost 2 to 3 months until he was 15 months that we had to go through that process where he was asleep with us in the bed at first, but then he'll keep on waking up during the night. So
Yeah.
he'll only sleep for about 30 to 45 minutes at a time. And then he'll
Right.
wake up and he'll ask for a bottle and then he'll fall asleep on the bottle. And what ended up happening was he was having just so much milk at night that he was not eating enough in the morning time. So, like, whenever we would try to introduce food, solid foods, he would just not accept it because he was getting all of those calories at night.
Hmm.
And so it was like a pretty bad cycle of giving him the bottle, trying to keep him asleep. For both of us, there was no sleep at all for
Yeah.
the 3, 4 months that we went through it. Yeah, and then ultimately we kind of went back and we looked at Joanna for help.
Yeah. And Dad, I also remember during that time that maybe like it was getting harder for you to help him go to sleep or go back to sleep. Wasn't he kind of getting mommy preferenced where your son was like, even though you were co-sleeping and doing all the things, he was always like wanting mom instead of
Yeah,
like you. Yeah.
yeah, no, I think it was super hard.
Yeah.
Almost so much so that I was like questioning, like, come on, like, baby, why are you not sleeping with me? But yeah, it was super hard, and I think we were not sleeping enough, like Uthera said, and that was making us irritable as well. So it was can't
Hmm.
imagine that life again.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly. Like just irritable and nothing was working. Okay. And then mom, you had said that initially at 7 months, you were like, I don't want to do cry it out. That's all I see in the marketplace.
Yeah,
That's why you didn't make any changes at 7 or 8 months. But
yeah,
then here you are at 15 months. Now you're desperate. Like now
yeah,
you've gone way down. Like your
yeah,
ability to tolerate what's going on, like dad said, like
yeah,
highly irritable, highly no sleep.
yeah,
So then you were like, all right, I've got to find an alternative to cry it out. So you found me because I'm a gentle sleep coach. And
yeah.
so what was it like to, get that support that how did that feel for you to
So I think first of all, what I want to say is that Joanna is very systematic. Like, so even before we started the coaching, I remember that you had asked us to do like a log of everything that he does.
Mhm.
So that kind of first of all gave us the idea that we are in the right path. Like,
Mhm.
we are working with someone who actually knows what to do,
Mm.
and like it, you made it very clear that this was not a cry it out method. This was a slow transition, and of course, we had to keep an open mind that whenever there is transition, whenever there is change, a baby is going to resist. So we had to trust that, and we went with the flow at the time to kind of get that understanding in, because we didn't know that we had introduced all of these crutches that were crutches. Like, we didn't even know. We just thought that it was just part of how a baby sleeps, because everybody does it. Yeah, so I think that was one thing that immediately kind of hit, that once you started with the coaching process, we kind of got the understanding of what we are supposed to do, the bare minimum things that we're supposed to do versus everything else that we were doing. But yeah, do you want to add something else?
Yeah, no, I mean, it was crazy. Like, I even learned about like all the different cycles of sleep. Like, who knew like all of that existed? Right. So when you start learning a little bit more about the science behind, what happens and why it happens, I think it sort of gets you to a stage of then starting to figure out, okay, now how do we use that understanding, to give the baby, what he really needs, which is a good amount of sleep so that he's actually excited. Even he was not, doing well, right? Like, he was irritable, like when he would be up. Like, I mean, now we see him, after that he's sleep trained, like waking up with a smile and like going to bed like happily, like, you know, like I said, like can't imagine, life before this stage.
Yeah, like we're at the point now, you guys, where he literally reaches for his crib and he
Yeah.
tells his parents that he is ready for his nap.
Yeah.
He's like
Correct.
walking towards the bedroom saying it's nap time.
Yeah.
Not in a million years did anyone expect that result,
Yeah.
that we were able to use, behavioral science and sleep science to really match it with what his needs were and
Yeah.
move in very, very incremental, small steps.
Yeah.
And like I said, like we did it once when he was 15 months, and you guys had a great run where everything was
Yeah.
great for several months, and then the illness came, and then
Mhm.
you, by accident, reintroduced sleep crutches. And
Yeah.
this happens. So I think it's an important topic, because a lot of parents will say to me, "Oh my God, if I do this with you, am I ever going to have to do it again?" And I say, "It depends." And they go,
Yeah.
"What?" And I say, "Well, if we find out your child is highly sleep crutch prone, if you reintroduce the crutches for too long and consistently, like bedtime at, each interval all night long, then yes, that child will gladly take as many sleep crutches as you're willing to offer, and you will
Yeah.
have what's considered a full sleep regression, meaning
Yeah.
your child wasn't waking up at night and now they're waking up again 4 or 5 times a night."
Yeah.
And that's what happened to you guys. And it was
Yeah.
hard, but
Yeah.
you also knew you could come back to me for help, that there was no shame,
Yep.
Yeah.
there was no judgment. It was like, you know what? We made a whoops and a boo-boo, and
Yeah.
we need help again. And when we
Yeah.
worked again, like your confidence level was like sky high. You're like, we know
Yeah.
this.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think that's a very good point, that, first of all, during this age, right, between 1 and 2 years, the baby's personality is changing every month. So he definitely was not the same baby at 15 months as he was at 22 months when we started again. When we were, during that phase of regression plus illness that we went through at 15 months, we kind of understood very quickly that we made the boo boo. Like, we should not have done those things, because we've noticed it consistently that our baby thrives with consistency. Like, he wants a schedule. And having known that, if he had just been a little more resistant to the changes that we were, because we actually introduced the changes, he probably didn't even need it.
Yeah.
So that was like a lesson that we learned after the fact, that, okay, we made this mistake, but we know exactly what we did wrong that got us here. And I think at the time, I was also pregnant, and there was like some priorities in terms of, like, emotionally, I was just unable to hear him cry. So, like, I felt the need to go and grab him and just stop the cries for, even a little bit. Um, so I think it was kind of an emotional time as well for me, that we thought, okay, it's okay. The main thing is that he sleeps, and I don't care for now. So we'll just do what we do, and then we'll figure out once he's a little more, aware, and then we reintroduce it. So now, like, when do we know that what is the right time to do it again. So I guess, that's also important to know that, your baby will actually tell you in many ways that he wants to sleep better. And like he said, the main change that we noticed was that he was a happier baby when he was sleeping through the night. And
Yes.
then, like, we started noticing that he was just getting really, really cranky. And like he was, very irritable. He was not happy at all at bedtime. He would wake up grumpy. And at 22 months, like, uh, he was also having a speech burst at the time. So we kind of figured out that this is the right time to do it, even from like very heavily pregnant point of view, that we wanted to make sure that before the second baby comes, he
Yes.
is sleep trained.
Yes.
And that was kind of the window that we found, that this is like the perfect window right now, that we give him a couple of months and he will be able to master it. And we saw like the things that we did the first time around, and we incorporated a lot of those now. But I want to, reiterate that was not the same baby. He was
Yes.
an entirely different baby at 15 months, and he was an entirely different baby at 22 months. So it was like sleep training an entirely new baby,
Mhm.
but we knew the process. So it
Yes.
became easier for us to actually go through with it.
Mhm.
And we made success pretty soon. And that is the most important thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, and exactly. And again, if there's ever a regression, parents will also say, okay, well, if I have to sleep train again, like how quickly can they learn? And I say very quickly. I mean,
Yeah.
usually within a week, we're seeing massive improvement.
Yes.
And then towards full mastery, where you're getting the beautiful, life that you're getting now, I mean, within 2 weeks. And now it's been 6 weeks where he's sleeping through the night and taking impeccable naps. So why
Yeah.
don't you tell everyone what sleep looks like now?
So it's amazing. First of all, there is no resistance to wanting to go to sleep. He knows it's part of his daily routine.
Hmm.
He understands that there is like a pattern that he needs to follow, and he's happily doing it.
Hmm.
He plays when he plays, and when it's time to sleep, he understands that he has to sleep.
Yep.
Um, and we start his night routine at around 6:30 ish typically, and he knows like once the night routine has started, this is the pattern. Like you do A, B, C, like it's kind of like that, and then he has to go into the crib, and then he has to fall asleep. And there are days when he would just be like, I just want to go to sleep, and he will tell us that, you can just put me in the crib and bye bye.
Hmm.
So he's gotten to that stage. In the afternoons, he is like his own nap captain. He will be like at 12:30, he's like, okay, bye, I'm done. And then he'll just go inside to sleep. So yeah, he's gotten really good at it. He sometimes will have some arousals in between, like if he's startled by a sound or something, he would wake up. But then now we are known to the process, and we know not to disturb him.
Hmm.
So he has mastered his sleep skills so well that he can actually now go back to sleep on his own.
Yep.
And those things are important to know as parents. And I think first time parents, we are overly cautious. He's sleeping so well, but we still have the baby monitor on all the time.
Yep.
And we're still constantly watching him. We don't have to anymore, but we still do it.
Mhm.
uh, and so like we see that even if he tosses and turns, and there are times that he'll actually sit up and he'll just look around, but then he'll fall asleep again. So like that's like great transition that we are seeing now in our baby.
Mhm.
And like amazing mood. So it has so many benefits. Like his mood is great. He's eating well, which was another point of concern that we had initially. His milk intake has gone really down, which is another thing that we wanted. Like we wanted him to have other foods and not just rely on milk. So yeah, so all of those things like are great positives that we are seeing just from sleep training. Like there are so many things that are interrelated to one part of
Yeah, and
his
I
life.
think you also said you got the
Yeah,
speech burst.
yeah, yeah,
That was a big one, right?
yes,
So like, when your child's, between 15 and 18 months, some speech starts coming and you guys were like, what? We want more speech. And then once we
yeah.
trained him again, like the speech started just, pouring out, which is
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
Um, so if like, so now we know that life is better. We know that the second baby's coming any day now, which is amazing.
Mhm.
The parents have been integrated. Dad, you've been integrated. So talk
Mhm.
about what it was like to now be in a situation where like you can handle the everything. Like if mom's in the hospital and you're home with your son, like no problem. Like talk about that.
Super easy. Well, which was not the case like before we did this, but same thing, right? Like he knows when he wants to go back in and get his nap, or like, he knows when it's like, you know, sleep time at night. So the schedule is the same. Like he does it now with any of us in the
Yeah.
family, which is amazing because there used to be a preference that he had for mom. It feels great to be able to do this with your son. And that's, I guess, the on the emotional side of things, like you feel good about it yourself in a way, that you're able to do this, and your son's being sort of able to spend time with you, like read a book, get him to bed. I think all of that is sounds super simple, but it's actually a privilege.
It is a privilege. And I often say to families, like when you have a situation where you kind of had a mommy preference going on, the dad often feels like really on the periphery, even though dad wants to be totally involved, the baby kind of creates this like barrier. It's kind
Yeah.
of an invisible barrier. And so then the dad kind of has this feeling like, well, whenever I try to help, I actually make things worse. Right. And so now the benefit of sleep training is what we get is dad and baby are bonded. Dad and baby trust each other. Dad and baby have their own cute little pattern. Dad gets to have that beautiful experience of reading the book. I mean, there's nothing better than sitting with your kid on your lap, reading a book,
Hmm.
and then a final kiss, put him in the crib, walk out the door, and be like,
Yes.
it's 7:30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it just is right. I mean, it's such a
Yeah.
massive accomplishment,
Yeah. And I want to actually say, you had told me when we had started the process that he needs to have association with the routine and
Mhm.
not the person.
And not the person.
Yeah, and that was something that we didn't really think how important it was at the time. Now we do that. It really doesn't matter if I'm doing the routine or he's doing the routine or any of the grandparent is doing it or the neighbor is doing it. Like he's actually fine.
Yeah.
He'll just go to sleep because he knows that he has to take a bath, he has to read a book, and then he has to go to the crib and he has to sleep all night. Like he knows that.
Yeah.
So that's amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So what's possible for you guys now that literally was not possible before working with me?
Yeah, I think eating together is the main one for us. So we were never able to eat together at the same time for the longest time because one of us was always on call with our baby.
Mhm.
And that's changed now. We definitely get to spend some evenings together, which is amazing. Just talk actually about anything, which has been great. Yeah, and
What
Watch
about you, Dad?
TV, like
watch TV. Yeah.
bunch of different things that we had not caught upon over the
Yeah.
last couple of years. So
Yeah,
I
last
mean,
couple of years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we had a lot to catch up in the last 22,
exactly.
Yeah,
24
like we
months.
hadn't seen a movie in 2 years.
Yeah,
So yeah, so just getting able to start a movie and finish the movie the same night, that was like, wow.
I know, right? So
Yeah,
simple pleasures. Okay,
yeah.
cool. So when if you guys ever bump into a family that is either scared to do sleep training or doesn't believe it's going to work for them because their case is too hard, or they have a misperception that the only way to sleep train is cried out, like what do you guys, I'd love Dad to share first, like what do you guys want people to know about it if they're like, I don't know.
Yeah, we were just joking about it, right? Like, I'm gonna show him, show the family, like our kid, sleeping soundly, and tell them that this is what is possible, right? And you can actually go, have dinner, watch a TV show, or like watch a movie, like while that's happening, and actually get your life in order. And more importantly, get some sleep if you want to get some sleep yourself, and actually wake up like with your kid and have the energy to play with the kid.
I know.
So I think that's what is really possible. And having gone through this now a couple of times, I would say that we were actually apprehensive the first time ourselves, and it wasn't necessarily easy. Like we had to learn, like we had to teach, and we had to go through the process. So it's going to be a journey, and that's going to be the key, and it's really good for the baby. It's good for the parents. It's good for everyone else in the household, and that's ultimately what you want.
Yeah. How about you, Mom?
Yeah, I completely agree that it's a journey. It's gonna be a slow transition. we had spoken about it, initially as well, that uh, even though it's not a cry it out method, there are going to be some cries because our babies are smart. Like they are going to be resistant to change. They want, things the easy way. So
Mm.
it's when we take some of those pleasures away,
Yeah.
it's not going to be great. Like even as adults, we don't like it. So it's going to be a slow transition. There are going to be some cries realistically, but like having gone through the process now, and it's been like 2 months of a sleep trained baby, those 4 or 5 days in the initial days when we were sleep training him and there were some cries, they seem like a distant past now
Yes.
because the baby is just doing so well. He is in great mood. He's, doing well all over, all around. And
Right.
I think when you look at that, it's like a small price to pay, but that's a price that we pay as parents because, to be very honest, the baby is fine. Like we have to accept the fact that it's not, a cried out method where they are completely abandoning the baby and just leaving them to fend for themselves. Like that's not what we are doing here. This is a slow, easy, gradual process that is
Mhm.
even acceptable for the child. Like they
Yes.
understand, they see you, they understand that there is a change going on. They are going to be resistant to the change at first, but I promise you that they will accept it and that
Yes.
this is great for them in a lot of ways.
Exactly. And I think
Yeah.
that's really important to say is that there is no such thing as a
Yeah.
no crying. And the way
Yeah.
I like to, because the word crying can be very triggering. So it's like
Yeah.
the word for me is more like level of protest. Like,
Yeah.
are they protesting because they're frustrated? Are they
Yeah.
protesting because they're confused? Are
Yeah.
they protesting because you're being super inconsistent and they don't know
Yeah.
what you're doing? So there's, the way I work is we
Yeah.
really deep in decoding the nature of the protest so that we can respond
Yeah.
appropriately. And that's
Exactly.
the key thing is always looking at what the trigger is and how we can respond appropriately in order to still make progress,
Yeah.
still able to offer support, verbal support, physical support. We're physically in the room, we're
Yeah.
available to them. We're
Yeah.
just not giving them the crutch every single time
Yeah. Yeah.
because we want the
Exactly.
skills to be built. So
Yeah.
awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. You're two-time winner, and I think you have learned well, and it will be great because now your baby's sleeping, and now when you go to have, your new family member coming any day now, you can do this with confidence that your child is
Yeah.
home and sleeping well,
Mhm.
and anyone can put him to sleep, which is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. We are so excited about that. This definitely was a main point of concern for us, with a new baby coming in. So yeah, I just want to say to the moms out there that, just be patient. We are all doing the best that we can. And this is a great option to actually consider because we are seeing the change in our baby that just sleep can bring. So like sleep is connected to so many things of, being well all around. And once we fix that small tiny thing, it just changes
Everything
everything to the
shifted.
baby. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks, Joanna.
Okay.